Good morning, guys. As you all know that I am so invested in this Thabo story. Today we are looking at how Thabo managed to actually escape out of prison. The plot thickens by the day, guys. The so-called Facebook rapist and murderer and now fugitive Thabo Bester allegedly walked out of maximum prison during his daring May 22 escape disguised as a warder with the help of prison officials. Times Live investigations can reveal from interviews with prisoners and correctional services officials who were locked up in the unit and on duty at the prison at the time of the escape. And G4S prison management officials investigating the escape that Bester carefully hatched the plan well in advance. Bester made his escape on May 3, 2022 after he faked his own death by having a body smuggled into the prison, allegedly hidden inside a large bag used to transport food for inmates. Once smuggled into the prison, sources say the body was believed to have been hidden inside the kitchen's fridges for 2 days before a senior prison security official allegedly used a wheelchair to wheel the body from the kitchen to the isolation unit. It was then placed under the cell and then reportedly set alight in the early hours of the morning. It is not known whose body this was. During the commotion of the fire, Bester is believed to have walked out, disguised as a prison warder. A G4S executive who cannot be named as he is not authorized to speak to the media said, "What is concerning from the footage is that one warder enters the unit through the emergency unit just before the first fire with a wheelchair, while two warders are seen leaving through the same exit a short while later, just before the second explosion, in a hurry. We don't know who that other warder was, though we have our suspicions." And guys, can you guess who that could be? I already have that a guess as well. Times Live investigations has learned from prison sources and inmates that Bester was moved into the isolation unit 3 days before his escape. He was, according to multiple sources, placed in cell 35 in the 2-floor unit after he made an own safety application to G4S officials. G4S, a global security company, runs the prison on behalf of the Department of Correctional Services. Department sources say own safety applications are made when prisoners fear being attacked by fellow inmates. Prison management assess the applications, which are then approved or dismissed once regional department officials have been notified. Department spokesperson Singabakho Nxumalo said a report on the ongoing investigation would be released in due course, which will assist everyone in terms of details. He was unable to say when the report will be released. On Saturday, the department confirmed Bester's escape. G4S on Tuesday announced that 3 prison officials had been fired in September, December, and January after an internal investigation. It is understood that one is a security supervisor, while the others monitor and control the prison CCTV camera system. Times Live investigation has been told that near cell 35 is an emergency escape door leading to a courtyard, the kitchen, and another courtyard, which has a gate opening into a street. It is this route which Thabo Bester allegedly took when he gained his freedom. It was not the first time he was brought into the unit, said an inmate. The inmate, speaking on condition of anonymity from a Gauteng prison, was in the isolation unit at the time Bester was there. The prisoner is one of the 2 who raised the alarm with Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services and were transferred to other prisons for blowing the whistle. Both prisoners were interviewed in November by a Cole Flynn from the Free State Provincial Investigative Unit. The prisoner is one of 3 inmates, a warder, and a G4S source who all have knowledge of Bester's escape, who were interviewed by Times Live investigations. The prisoner said Bester went to the isolation unit on April 30 after making an own safety application. There was another inmate in cell 35 who was told he was being moved. The inmate refused. When he refused, the security reaction unit was called in. It was a hell of a scene. They moved him to cell 47 and Bester was placed in that cell. He went on to say, we couldn't understand why. No one gets to choose which cell they want. Also, you don't just move into a cell. You go to the cell units holding cells, which has cell 2 to cell 10, where you are held until the department has approved your application. He went on to say, once the application is approved, you get a certificate from the prison management which goes on your file. It's proof that you've permission to be in isolation. Bester was moved into cell 35 the same day he arrived. Getting a cell can take up to 2 weeks. He said they met Bester on April 31. He went on to say he was chilled. He was sitting there with a computer and cell phone, which he had when he came to the unit earlier in the month. He went on to say, we greeted each other in Sotho, which he is fluent in. He is also fluent in Zulu. He said hi, but stayed in his cell. When he came back from morning exercise, I asked him how he was doing and he said great. He said he would be gone soon. I said he meant that he would be returning back to the general prisoner's cells. He said Bester stayed in his cell for the next 2 days working on his computer. Recalling the day of the escape, he said everyone explosion. It was a huge bang. You could smell the petrol. My cell was on the ground floor. I looked out the door's plexiglass window and saw smoke coming from Bester's cell. It was chaos. Everyone was yelling. He goes on to say, we opened our cell doors, which look onto the street to get fresh air because of the petrol smell. Each cell has its own emergency button, which triggers an alarm for that specific cell. What was strange, no alarm came from Bester's cell. Also, there were no screams for help. He said 2 warders, one of them, Senohe Matswara, and another warder who were on duty came to see what was happening. Matswara has declined requests for comments. He goes on to say, they just looked through the door and told us to shut up. I asked the other warder what was going on because I was scared. I didn't want to die in a fire, but he said it was nothing. He went on to say, he said Matswara had instructed him to take the general inmates to the kitchen to prepare breakfast, which was about 2:30 a.m. Matswara remained behind to ensure he went back to sleep. Those in the unit who had gone back to sleep were woken up again by a second explosion shortly after 3 a.m. He goes on to say it was huge. There was smoke everywhere. There are lights in the units and you could see black smoke coming from Bester's cell door. He said he saw Matswara and another warder enter Bester's cell and flames coming out. He goes on to say they came straight out. The fire extinguisher, which is usually in the passage, was not there. It was in an office which the other warder had to run to get. There was so much smoke. I saw Matswara go back into the cell and then disappear. Other warders from the prison came with a nurse who then called a doctor who said the person was dead. Matswara was not there though. He alleged another senior official arrived and disappeared into the cell, closing the door. He goes on to say they were there for a while and then sprayed the fire extinguishers. Even though the fire was out, they called 2 prisoners who had cleaning duties and instructed them to bring buckets of boiling water and clean the cell. He goes on to say they cleaned after the emergency support team guys took the body out of the cell. They took the body out to the state forensic pathologists who were not allowed into the prison. He said when GICS officials arrived, there was a huge argument outside the cell. They were screaming, wanting to know who cleaned the cell, where the body was gone, and where it was, and why there was no proper reference to the fire in the occurrence book. You could hear them. That's when we were ordered back into our cells and the doors locked. He said the next day they were told Bester committed suicide because of a breakup with his girlfriend. But we knew that was wrong. He did not have a girlfriend, he was not married, and had no children. He said warders told him there was a major cover-up and that a body had been smuggled into the prison 2 days before through the kitchen where it was stored in the fridge. Another prisoner who was in custody with Bester at Luikwa prison and who was transferred with him at Tomangaung said that shortly before the first explosion, a body was wheeled into Bester's cell. A senior prison official said he had testified numerous times about what had happened and how Bester and others bankrolled prison officials' lifestyles. Another warder said Bester was found with nearly 10,000 rands in cash while he was in isolation. He went on to say it was never written up though. I came in and was told this is what happened. I said it must be reported, but I discovered that it was not. 2 days later, he was gone. He goes on to say, I also discovered that the cameras in the unit were either turned away from Bester's cell and that some of the unit were turned off. Again, this was meant to be reported in the occurrence books, but they were not. He goes on to say, we discovered that certain cell doors, including Bester's, were opened just before the first explosion. No matter what, if a cell door is opened, it must be recorded in the occurrence book. That's because if there is a computer system crash, at least you have records. JIS spokesperson Emarincia Cupido said they were deeply troubled by the evidence that had been reported. Once the investigation is completed, JICS will provide a report to the police, Justice Minister, and the Justice Portfolio Committee. You guys, this is a very, very, complicated and twisted story. Thank you so much for being a part of this video. Please let me know in the comment section what do you think about this whole setup, guys. It gets deeper by the day. Honestly, this one needs to be documented, guys. Like, seriously. This one should not sleep Netflix. I cannot wait. Yeah. Anyway, guys, my love is real. I'll see you on the next video.